What if one scan could save your life? In our first episode of Season 3 of It Takes Heart, we sat down with founder and radiologist Dr. Zane Sherif to talk about longevity and preventative health.
He sold his business. He was 55 and he was like, okay, I've sacrificed my health to get the money. Now I need to put the money back into my health. And I thought that was pretty logical. So he went to his GP and he said, I want to get a whole body MRI. He flew in interstate, came and got his scan, and he had pancreatic cancer, but the earliest version of pancreatic cancer, and in the best location for pancreatic cancer, which was in the tail of the pancreas, which is literally just chop it off and put it in the bin.
In this episode, we explore how full body MRIs are not only saving lives, but giving people incredible peace of mind.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review, and follow us on Instagram to help grow our community.
So today we're excited to be launching Season 3 of It Takes Heart in a little bit of a different way. We are down here with Dr. Zane Sherif at the Gold Coast at MBR Health. We are very excited to meet with you today. Zane has got quite a following online with celebrities, high-performance athletes. I think Chris Hemsworth has even been here having these radiology scans done. I've been fortunate enough to have my own experience here at MBR Health, and I'm looking forward to diving into that today. Zane, thank you for joining us today on It Takes Heart.
Thank you.
Let's start first with your journey to founding MBR Health. How did you get from med school to here?
Yeah, what was life before here?
Yeah, so, the traditional path, undergrad, and then a couple of years in the wilderness trying to pad up your CV and then getting onto radiology training. I finished that at the PA hospital in 2013.
Was radiology always going to be your specialty?
Look, it was not.
Right.
So, because my father's a radiologist, my uncle's a radiologist, my cousin's a radiologist. So there are a lot of radiologists in the family, and I wanted to paddle my own canoe, so I took a more scenic route.
Yeah.
In that I did Gen Med, Gen Surg, orthopedics, and then I went, damn it, that was right.
In our blood.
And then I went in, I transferred over to radiology, and I did radiology. So, so 2013, I finished my fellowship at Gold Coast University Hospital and have been working in and around the Gold Coast ever since. So I worked first job out was with Loomis, 5 years, 5-year contract. And look, that was great. It was collegiate, lots of more senior radiologists around me, kind of nurturing me because I was very, finished at that point, book smart, but still needed a lot of experience. Got that experience in that 5 years, went to Q-Scan for a short period of time, and really, we were getting kind of close to COVID, and then I was just like, I think radiology could be done so much better. And I call it comfortably numb. Mm-hmm. So you're in this job, you're making an okay salary, you don't really have to think or want for anything better. So therefore your brain isn't really kind of going into how you can push things. Because again, you're comfortably numb, things are working, bills are getting paid, and I kind of was getting a little bit dissatisfied with that, and I just wanted something better. So myself and the wife, Kiri, thought, maybe we should, we've got enough experience now, a bit of a reputation, maybe we should look at doing something ourselves, and Mermaid Beach Radiology was born.
Is she a radiologist as well?
She's a doctor of philosophy, so she's a PhD in engineering.
Yeah.
She's a smart one in the duo. So that was just before COVID. Obviously, we didn't know COVID was coming.
Yeah.
So we set up MBR, and then COVID.
So if we pause COVID for a second, I guess, what was the vision?
He said you felt it could be done differently.
Yeah, boutique. So if you look at the diagnostic pie, like blood tests, seeing a doctor, a specialist, radiology, pathology, etc. So if you look at that diagnostic pie, a WHO paper from 2019 looked at it themselves, and they said that the diagnostic pie, radiology, was 80% of that diagnostic pie on average. The reality is good radiology could be 95% of that diagnostic pie. Because most diseases, we don't have a biomarker. That means there's no blood test for it. It's heavily reliant on radiology. But because back to that comfortably numb, people just doing it the same way they've always done it, no one's really pushing the envelope. There was just a bit of lack of innovation in a larger corporate scenario. So forming MBR allowed me to drive it and drive that innovation and do the fun stuff. I mean, that is the fun stuff for me.
What were the gaps? Like, what were you really focused on first?
So we bought Australia's first spectral CT. So that's You've got conventional CT, then it went to dual energy CT, and the next iteration is spectral CT. The next iteration on that again is a thing called photon counting CT, which are a couple in Australia. Photon counting, I won't bore you, photon counting is the ultimate spectral, so it's based on a spectral kind of workflow. But what that means is, so we were the first to get that into private practice, and it's a giant leap in diagnostics, in image quality, radiation dose. We can reduce the radiation dose on average by about 50%. We can reduce the contrast volume. There are tests that we do, normally would be 120 mils of contrast. We can do that with 30 or 20 mils of contrast. So people with bad kidneys or allergies don't have a problem getting those scans now. So we bought that. It was a very steep learning curve because we didn't know what it could do over a regular CT, and over that period of time we've been finding out it's amazing for, obviously, for oncology, for breast implant, for just so many more things that we haven't been able to, even saying what a kind of a kidney stone is made of, for gout, for all these extra things that a general CT would struggle. And then once we worked out what it could do, then we were really just pushing, getting bigger reductions in contrast, bigger reductions in study dose, etc. So it was a very steep learning curve.
And what about for your MRI machines? Are they different to what else is on the market?
Yeah, so physically it's the same. The thing that that makes the biggest difference is we have a thing called clinical science tools. And clinical science tools is like the unlock of an MRI scanner. So most scanners are shipped commercially. They've got the safeties on. So that means you can't accidentally push it too far and blow up a gradient amplifier or blow something up. With the clinical science tools, and again, I'm dumbing down the explanation, but it gives us a lot more tools. But
please do. Yeah, roll with that.
But essentially it takes off all the safeties. It allows the MRI scientists, Ben Kennedy and the rest of the team, to really push it to the nth degree, and we can just get so much more out of it. So physically they're the same. There's 3T and so on, but that's software. So the magic is really in the software end. The hardware is quite similar.
And because when you're saying pushing it in terms of the results that you could see, not pushing it in terms of the patient concerns, you know.
Yeah, no, correct. Yeah, so I mean, for the patient, there's no difference. It's you lie there after a period of time, you might feel a bit of increased heat, but so there's no real difference from a patient perspective. All the differences are really on the software side and the image quality side. But yeah, that's the main thing.
So when we met, I remember you talked about like these diagnostic tools are being like one pillar in the longevity conversation. Yeah. And, you know, we can be pumping ourselves with a whole bunch of, you know, herbal medicines and all sorts of things. But then if there's something going on, we're kind of missing the point. Talk to me about that.
All right. So I call them the 8 pillars. And I'm never going to remember each one, so I've written it down.
I don't know, it's 4, so go.
And this isn't in any particular order, but out of the 8 pillars, I'm only good for about 2 of them. The rest are kind of, it's on you.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about my ones first. So whole body MRI is, so life, to get to old age, it's a lot of things, but the ones that you can kind of really drill down and control is the surveillance. So life right now is a game of whack-a-mole. We have so many challenges right now, I think more than any other generation. I mean, pollution, microplastics, hypervaccination, you name it. There are so many things and genetics that are getting expressed now, not in your 50s and 60s and 70s. They're getting expressed now in your 30s and 40s. So if you've got a faulty gene, some environmental trigger is going to draw that out, and then you're going to have a cancer that should have normally developed at 60 or 70, and you might know that history from your parents or grandparents. It's now coming out in your 30s or in your 40s. So the MRI is how we play that game of life whack-a-mole. So as these threats come up, your MRI is the whack-a-mole. It identifies the whack-a-mole, and you've got to hit them on the head, and hopefully you've found stage 1, stage 2 disease really, really early, and then you can address it, because that's your best chance of cure.
Because that's the point of difference, right? Is that typically we wait for the blood test or the symptoms, and by the time we're then going and reacting.
Correct. Correct. Exactly. Look, medicine really up until recently has been very much a reactive game. It's only with the advent of these new technologies that we've got to say, okay, well, now we don't have to wait to get sick. We don't have to wait to fall off the cliff. We can now be the guardrails on the top of the cliff instead of trying to mend you back together at the bottom of the cliff. So medicine is fundamentally changing to proactive. And look, and that's not just me. I mean, as of July this year, the government released the national lung cancer screening, and that's for 50 to 70-year-olds who have a big history of smoking. We've obviously got bowel cancer screening. We've got mammography screening. So we know that screening works. Look, it's not the perfect tool. but it's our tool, and it's still of great utility. And we know that screening does save lives. This is the reason whole body MRI would never fit those definitions is because it's too expensive. Because all those screenings is about deploying it to a population. You could never have 28 million Australians going and having a whole body MRI. It's almost an impossible task. The cost is astronomical. So this is personal screening.
Yeah.
It's not population-based screening.
So then in terms of our longevity, so we've got surveillance.
Oh, let me read my list. Okay.
Go through your list.
Sorry.
Well, so what, we might need some screening for those young 20-year-olds on the vape soon. We'll have to bring that down.
It's a big concern. That is a big concern. So so close surveillance, so the whack-a-mole, but the hammer is your MRI. The next thing is maintain and restore. So maintain and restore function, things like arthritis, bad backs, all that kind of thing. We can now with orthobiologics, so that's orthobiologics umbrella term for things like platelets, stem cells, growth factors, all that stuff in the plasma. So that orthobiologics now is really having a major treatment response in bad knees, bad backs, bad ankles, and hips, and so on. So we will, as we work it out more, and there's good level 1 papers now saying that it is the way to treat these arthritides, we'll be able to salvage most joints. And we'll be able to help a lot of backs without fusion surgery. We're not fully there yet, but it's certainly new treatments that are gaining a lot of traction. So that helps part of the maintain and restore. We've said close surveillance, and the other things then I've said optimized nutrition. So that's basically optimized nutrition. Try and have a macrobiotic diet, reduce your toxin intake.
Can you just also add in there though, when you talk about that, that's also feels like a minefield, because that feels very obvious to you of what the nutrition should be. But I think that feels like a minefield of what are we supposed to be eating?
Correct.
What are we supposed to be doing? Who is right? What this plan, that plan,
Correct.
Everything contradicts each other. How is anyone to know how to do that right? If that's a key pillar to longevity.
Correct. The longer an ingredient list is on the packet, the worse it is.
So keep it simple.
Keep it simple, because all that is extra processing and extra additives, and it's nearly an impossibility. And plus the writing is so small, I can't read it. I've got to take a photo and zoom it in. And that's all by design. And if it's got E and numbers in it, then it's just an unnatural product. So, I mean, you're right. Optimized nutrition, I'm oversimplifying. That's a hard one. That's a real hard one. But it's not just about optimizing nutrition. It's also keeping the stuff out. So, there's recent publications about blueberries and how it's full of pesticides and herbicides and all that kind of thing. I mean, how do you get rid of these? These are all waterproof, so they don't wash off every time it rains. So the only way to get rid of it, it's a 15-minute soak in bicarb. It's the only way to get rid of it. And certainly for my kids, that's all the berries are all soaked in bicarb for 15 minutes. It gets a little bit mushy, but if you get it at the right time, it's okay.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of an art to that. The gut biome, all of these things affect the gut biome, and we know now that the gut biome is our third immune system. So having that as healthy as possible is really important. Reducing risk factors of disease. I mean, that's probably the most obvious one, but I mean, risk factor, smoking, vaping, taking any bad toxin. Drugs, etc. Adequate sleep is a real one that just isn't given enough attention. People almost brag.
What is adequate sleep?
Yeah, look, it's a minimum of 8 hours. But right now we're so busy. Everything is doing this price-wise. People have to work less, second jobs, etc. I mean, it's an easy thing to say if you can afford it.
Yeah.
But sleep is a big one.
Restore it
And then
time.
everything you just said there with cost of living, hiking, second job, that then comes stress and worry, which then impacts.
And that was, I was going to say,
at the time.
stress mitigation was the next one, and social connection and societal contribution. If you're, let's just say you're super wealthy and you're not really doing much, I mean, then the depression comes and the isolation and so on. So you've really got to have that societal contribution and societal connections. So they're important things.
Connection.
And we've got plenty of rat studies that show that. The famous one there is with 2 rats. They put a rat by itself and they laced the water with, I can't remember, some addictive opiate, and it was just constantly drugged out. And then when they had a second rat in the box as a companion, it didn't touch there was water and there was the laced water with the morphine or whatever it was. Yeah. It didn't touch the morphine, so it had the buddy, so it wasn't alone, and it didn't take the addictive water. So we've got plenty. So we've got plenty of studies that show those connections are important. But back to that adequate sleep, the reason that it kind of sounds obvious, but is like everything needs to rest, because it's when we rest we regenerate. So if your neurons are constantly firing and those neurotransmitters are getting consumed, like there has to be an off switch. There needs to be an off to regenerate and to recalibrate. If it's constantly firing, or you're only getting 4 hours sleep a night, I mean, you're on a pathway to some sort of dementia.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about then the experience then coming in to MBR Health. So there's 3 packages that you can come in terms of the scanning, and I'd had the whole body MRI, which was 4 scans. Had MRI, body composition,
osteoporosis,
bone density, and then the CT,
and
the chest CT.
Correct.
So let's talk about then, I guess, if someone's doing the same level of testing that I had done, what's not being covered that they would need to then go and do in addition to what I had done?
Okay, so what age are you now? Am I allowed to ask?
Yeah, you can, because obviously I look 30.
I was going to say 21, 22?
Close, but it's 43.
Okay, all right, so you're a spring chicken. So
I'm over halfway there, I feel. I feel like I'm on the downward.
Yeah, no, you're very much on the up.
Yeah.
But so the package that you got, look, I think at your age, that's more than enough. And I just want to qualify that CT that you had. That is a super, super low dose. We call it an ultra low dose CT chest. That is roughly the same radiation dose as an X-ray. So it's that lower dose. And we took years to develop it. And the reason we developed it is because as good as MRI is, MRI needs blood, flesh, fat, etc. to give a signal. So it's not good with air. So an air-filled organ like the lungs, MRI is actually not that great. So that's why we do the CT. It gives me the architecture, so I can see if you've got bronchitis, bronchiectasis, emphysema, etc. And then those small nodules, I just cannot see the small nodules. I can see nodules on MRI, but not the small ones. And they're the small ones, which everybody's got small nodules. It's like a freckle.
Yeah.
But some of those nodules, every cancer started from a nodule.
Right.
It didn't start at a 10 centimeter or 5 centimeter cancer. It started small. So we just put them on the radar and we can track it. So so that's an important one. The next package up gets a little bit more granular on a lot of the vascular stuff. So we start looking at you also get a calcium score.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. You also got a calcium score. That's actually in that low dose X-ray. So it wasn't even a separate. We can pull out a calcium score from that super low. So imagine for the same dose as an X-ray, I can tell you whether you've got small pulmonary nodules, lung cancer, mediastinopathy, your calcium score, maybe something in your thoracic vertebra, slip disc. It even covers the thyroid. So it covers basically every organ from there to there in your chest. Whereas an X-ray is 2 projections, front and sideways. It's a 150-year-old test. The only thing we're using from 150 years is the wheel. So it's a pretty blunt instrument. And for the same radiation dose, I can answer so much more.
And we said, obviously I'm 43. What age do you think someone should start doing these tests, and how frequently?
So this whole thing, we're not out to sell somebody a product that doesn't need it. So we've kind of set limits.
Yeah.
So we've gone 35 to 65. Yeah. After 65, remember, cancer risk increases with age. So after 65, I kind of want you to have more detailed testing. So we do offer another one after 65, but it's a lot more detailed because, again, your risk of cancer is increasing. Your risk is pretty low at a younger age. So, in fact, even below 35, you have to convince me that you need the test. So you might say, I've got everybody in my family has this condition at 30, then I'll say, okay, well, let's do it. But generally speaking, it's confined to 35 to 65. At 70, you're kind of getting to longevity without my help. So you kind of got good genetics. You don't need my help.
And at 35, is that the age where you're seeing things can shift?
So, yeah, and the ABC had a great show by Dr. Swan, their in-house doctor, and he showed, I think it was a couple of months ago, he showed that cancer rates in particular have gone up in certain demographics and certain ages, hundreds of %. And one of the biggest ones was pancreatic cancer.
Why? Why do we think?
It's again, back to that whole combination. It's a multitude of things. It's a combination of natural aging, genetics, and all the environmental... lifestyle, correct, environmental triggers. Yeah, so your genetics loads the gun and environmental exposure pulls the trigger, is the way I think about it. It's always different for different people.
And I guess to talk to your experience actually coming in here, we've had a little bit of a look around again today, like it's it looks beautiful, it looks calm, it doesn't feel stressful or scary or anything like that for people coming in. Do you find, I don't know whether you can speak to your own experience, like nervous, sort of like, what am I going to find out? Like there must be...
Yeah, I felt a little... I was a little... You would do it, so I was like, I'll do it. But I felt a little nervous, but I was actually more... I was more excited because I think I've always been someone... I didn't actually know this technology existed until you had seen a post, I think, on Instagram. I think it might have been with Chris Hemsworth. Yeah. And I had always said for years, imagine if we could get a test every single year and we could pre-screen, like literally what you're doing. I used to say, like that would be incredible, like the impact that would have. So when you'd said that, I was like, I can't wait. Like the mental load of knowing all those things that I need to worry about. And I think when I looked at the list, I was like, great, I'm not going to worry about this. That was fabulous. So for me, I felt like, and I knew I always had a regular blood test, so I knew that there wasn't going to be anything too hectic that came up, but I was more excited to see the results.
And so coming in, how long is someone coming in for? What's the experience like?
The experience was pretty good. Like I think I was here for 2.5 hours. You had to have the bowel prep, so I came in feeling very thin and fabulous. I was uneaten since the day before, but I was given my little pajamas that I walked around in. My MRI, I think, was just under 2 hours. I was able to watch a movie that I would never have been able to watch with my husband and my kids, so that was fabulous.
You just stayed completely still for 2 hours?
Yeah.
You probably would have freaked out. I loved it. I was in.
It's 100 minutes, but yes, the stiller you are, the better.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's because we run so many sequences, and as long as you're anatomically in the same position, if I see something on one, I can go put a localizer on that and I can see it line up and see what. So if there's any movement, I go, oh, is that in the pancreas or is it in the kidney or is it a lymph node just outside? So the stiller you are, the better the diagnostic result.
And compared to an MRI that you might have as a reaction to maybe some symptoms or something through a typical...
Yeah, so a reactive type scan. So a reactive type scan, let's just say we pick something up in the pancreas. Then we spend all our time, obviously, on that one organ. Yeah. We run contrast through it. We do slightly finer cuts through it. And we gate it as you breathe. Because the problem with I'm obsessed with the pancreas. You are going to find out. But because it's the hardest, it's one of the smallest organs, and it's the hardest positioned organ. It's right under the diaphragm. And the problem with any organ under the diaphragm, it moves every time you breathe.
Yeah.
And just above the diaphragm is what? Is your heart. So you get this massive ball pulsating, moving up and down. So you can imagine, to get a good look at the pancreas, it's a hard thing. In the test that you had, we look at the pancreas with CT. We look at it. So that low dose CT actually covers the pancreas. Yeah. Doesn't give us a great thing. It gives us some insights into it. Yeah. The MRI, there's a separate ultrasound. So generally speaking, if you went for the top package, we'll say, then we're kind of looking at the ultrasound 4 different ways. So it's a really big, and the reason I'm obsessed with the pancreas is because it's a divil of an organ when it goes bad. Even if you catch it early, it's still a problem.
Yeah.
Ask Steve Jobs. But his story was he went in for a kidney stone and they found pancreatic cancer, and unfortunately he took that early medical advice to his vitaminologist or whoever, and they kind of went down a wrong path. But anyway, so it's a tragic loss. But yeah, he caught it early, and then didn't do the right thing. But that's easy to say in hindsight. Back to your question about what else or what was different. The next package up just focuses more on a lot of the vascular stuff, which is more age dependent as well. So a lot of that atherosclerosis, which is aging of the vessels, that doesn't really, especially in females, isn't really a huge issue at 43. But at 53 and 63, it does become a bit more prevalent. So I would say by the time you get to 50, you might want to kind of get that those extravascular insights.
So if we talk about then the results from my time, what are the things we've scanned, checked from my package that we've ruled out that someone go, wow, if I did that, I'm going to know all of these things? Yeah.
So your package pretty much had the MRI from vertex to your ankles or to your feet. The only thing it didn't do separately was the breast. That is its own product, if you like, or its own scan. Yeah. I still get a look at it. Yeah. And if there's something pretty big there, I'm going to see it. But we were never about finding late stage. Our whole shtick is about finding early disease. So yes, we'll get a look at it. And again, you won't thank me if I pick a 5 centimeter monster in there. You want to know the 5 millimeter monster. Yeah. So that's where a dedicated breast MRI will uncover that.
And so it's cancer. The MRI would show cancer.
Correct.
What about things like MS? Or,
Correct. Yeah, it'll show all of that.
Yeah. Any other neural?
Look, it'll show atrophies. So we do the brain that we cover in the whole body MRI. It's a pretty comprehensive brain. We do a lot of quantitative imaging, and what that means is we're measuring the substructures in the brain. Yeah. And we know from experience now that as we get older, there's a natural shrinkage of the brain, but as we are going down a dementia pathway, that it becomes an asymmetrical atrophy, and some substructures of the brain shrink at a higher rate than the rest of the brain, and we can track all of that. So that's called neuroquant or quantitative MRI brain imaging, and that's part of the brain that we do. So even though it's a brain as part of a whole body, it's a pretty comprehensive brain in and of itself.
If you were, if someone was about to have an aneurysm, did those sorts of things show up in that level?
Absolutely, yeah. No, we do a special sequence called a time of flight, and that gives us beautiful 3D pictures of the circular villus, which is your arterial circuit in the brain, and we see if there's an aneurysm there, like to the same level as a dedicated scan.
Yeah, just phenomenal. So, sorry, what are you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, well, how do you be doing this?
Yeah, is this like an annual scan? Is this?
So there's no hard and fast rule. I think an annual is probably the best because it's an easy thing to remember. You go, oh, I'm due for my whatever. If you had it at 18 months, then it's a hard one to time to time. And then if you go 2 years, well, the confidence drops per day after that scan. Like your kind of cancer-free confidence drops every second after you just had your scan.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what the scan showed too.
Correct.
Right? It obviously depends on whether there was something there to watch or.
Correct. And we know I've had plenty of people who've actually had cancers develop within a year, even though they've had a normal scan. 6 months, I had a gentleman who had his scan, and then 6 months later got in contact with us and said, "Hey, I've got this lump in my groin." And I was like, okay, let's work it up. And sure enough, it was cancer that had developed within 6 months. Yeah, he was outside I think he was in his 60s, but he was certainly at the edge of where we would just do this as part of screening. And then we're into a bit more detailed, again, just with that cancer risk increasing with age.
And what about then? I also had a body composition test. What is that?
Yeah, so that really kind of maps out where the good fat and the bad, like your visceral fat, which is your toxic fat, and then your subcutaneous fat, and where it's distributed and the evenness of it and so on. And if you're making change to diet or...
I might give that to my PT.
Exactly.
Be like, there's an area I need to work on.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just shows all of that. It even maps your muscle volumes and shows asymmetry. So, and the beauty of the one that we've got in particular is that it's such a low radiation dose. In fact, it's roughly 85 times lower radiation dose than a standard DEXA, to the point where the tech who does the scan doesn't have to leave the room.
I found that a little bit strange. Yeah, she just sat there and we did that, and then we did the bone density, I believe, in the same room.
There's almost negligible radiation. And what does that mean? That means you can, like, if you're making any major changes in your life, whether it's diet, working out, etc., you don't have to wait 3 months and step on the scale, and you can almost go weekly. If you're motivated by the results and you want to see those results, then you can just do this scan. You can always do it once a week. There's virtually negligible radiation dose in it.
And then finally, the CT scan then. What did we cover in the CT scan?
Yeah.
We can cross off the list.
So we gave you a calcium score. Yeah. And a calcium score is a measure of how much, if you've got plaque disease, if it's calcified. Now, there is non-calcified plaque, and that is a problem in itself. That's thankfully not that common. But there are people who form plaques that don't calcify, which means they would score a 0, and they think everything is hunky-dory. But if there's a sufficient family history or something, and then we may not be that reliant on that test, because we know it's an imperfect test, but it's a useful test. And I wish Shane Warne had that test, and maybe he did. I just don't know. But the first sign of heart disease shouldn't be a death event.
Yeah.
There are ways to actually look and see what your risk for cardiovascular disease is.
Yeah.
Downstairs, it's very set up as well for children, by the looks of it.
The whole clinic. Like when myself and Kiri were designing the clinic, it was very much, what would our kids want to do here? What machines?
Why was that important?
We're very family orientated. Everybody in the clinic is. And anytime somebody's kid is sick, They bring the kid in, and the kid sits in the playroom or wherever. We've just designed it to be very kid-friendly because we love kids, and we've got 4 kids, which is crazy. But
Are you doing pediatric scanning?
we do pediatric scanning. I don't do a lot of that. I send it out to a subspecialist pediatric radiologist who will report that. We don't do a lot. I mean, we're actually quite set up for it because we've got the entertainment and the MRI, and we do a lot of kids. Yeah. But we haven't really put ourselves out there for it, but we're more than capable of doing it. It just adds the friendliness to the place.
Yeah, it definitely does. Can you maybe share some stories or some experiences of people, obviously not identified, but of really positive outcomes, or where you've really had a huge impact, where you've gone, do you know what, we're on the right track. This is why we're doing what we're doing.
Back to the pancreas. Yeah. So there was a chap who recently sold his business and did, I don't know whatever the number was, and good on him, he's worked hard. But anyway, he sold his business. He was 55 and he was like, okay, I've sacrificed my health to get the money. Now I need to put the money back into my health. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was pretty logical. So he went to his GP and he said, I want to get a whole body MRI and so on. So he sat in the GP office, because I called the GP, and he said, oh yeah, I fought that guy for half an hour not to get the scan. I said, well, aren't you glad that he overruled you? Because he came up and he flew in interstate, came and got his scan, and he had pancreatic cancer. But the earliest version of pancreatic cancer, and in the best location for pancreatic cancer, which was in the tail of the pancreas, which is literally just chop it off and put it in the bin. When you get pancreatic cancer, even if it's early, if it's in the head of the pancreas, it is a devil. And the reason is because it's the most complex anatomy at the head. You've got bile ducts, veins, arteries, nerves, lymph nodes. It's plumbed into the small bowel. So you can't just chop that out. It is a major replumbing of your body. Whereas in the tail, it's just snip in the bin, move on with your life.
So you just said that the GP fought him for 30 minutes about why not to get the scan.
Yeah.
Why is that? And are you seeing a lot of resistance?
Absolutely. It's a new paradigm of thinking. I don't blame the GP. He didn't know enough about the test. Yeah. Look, the usual talking points for this test, against it, are incidentalomas, its cost. I think, first of all, if you took the barriers away for this scan, what are the barriers? Time and money. Okay, let's just say the scan took a second and it was free. Would you do it? Everyone would do it. So the only things that are the barrier to this, the barrier to entry, is the time and the money. So if you take away that, the information from the scan, is it useful? Absolutely. Even in your case now, we have got an incredible baseline. Let's just say there was something on your scan and I couldn't exactly say what it was. I grade every finding, right, from basically 1 through 5. And that's not me, that's OncoRads. It's a proper internationally recognized lexicon of reporting. And so I grade every finding. The 1s, the 2s, you never think about. The 3 needs a bit more, and the 4 and the 5 means you've almost certainly got cancer. Yeah. So therefore, the ones to really look out for are the gradings of 3, 4, 5. 1s and 2s, move on with your life.
Just to clarify for my mother and father who might be listening, is that Mum, I'm all 1s and 2s, I'm all good.
So what that means is, yes, I can't necessarily tell you what everything is without taking a piece and putting under the microscope, but it's not demonstrating any scary imaging findings. So I give it a low score. And when you get this next year, now I've got a year's data. That thing hasn't moved in a year. So a longitudinal test. Okay. Well, now it's really effectively as harmful as a freckle. Yeah. And then the third one, well, there it is. So incidental findings are an issue for the elderly. So if I took an 80-year-old and I scanned them for the first time, literally for the first time, I will find hundreds of things I will find hundreds of things in that scan that will not be life-ending. One of them may be, right, but the rest of them will not be. But I'm kind of at that point obligated to kind of go down that rabbit hole for each one.
Do they need to know?
Yeah, exactly. And do they need to know it? Yeah. Which is why we don't sell this after 65. This is not for you. You got to longevity without my help. So I do not advocate for this test for anybody over the age of 65. So that's the main talking point why people are against this, saying they're always taking the octogenarian, the 80-year-old, and saying all the things you're going to find there. But I'm not pitching this at an 80-year-old. Yeah. So that whole argument is really an argument for the elderly, what they call the incidental omas. It's an argument for the elderly. It's not an argument for the young. A young person will barely have any incidentals. And the few that you do have, now we will just catalog them over time and put them to bed.
So more generally, do you find the medical profession quite supportive?
Not really, no.
No?
Look, it is a slow burn for sure.
Yeah.
It is a slow burn for sure. But it is, I think, really, I mean, I know the college even released a position statement a few days ago. And look, I have to say it was a little on the disappointing side because it was the same talking points, incidentalomas. And really what people should be thinking, and I haven't heard anyone talk about this yet, is they're talking about the false positives. The false positive is a gift. What that means is we found something, but it's not a cancer. So it's a false positive.
Let's explore that.
Yeah, exactly. May need exploration. Correct. May need exploration, may not. Right. So it's a false positive. It means we've kind of found it, but it's not anything serious. The thing that you should be focused on is the false negative. That means something there that the scan wasn't sophisticated enough to find. That's where the deficient test is that bucket of false negatives. That's where your cancer may live, and that's the deficiency. And yes, back to your earlier statement there, like the scan took 2 hours. It's actually 100. It's 100 minutes. There's a little bit of setup to get you comfortable and get your movie and music and headphones and so on.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's actual scan time. Yeah, scan time's 100 minutes. Now everybody says, "Oh, we can do it in an hour." Anybody can do a faster scan. You just scan less.
Yes.
But this is a radiologist-driven scan. I'm in and out, wet reading, and see if I can rob Peter. Like if I see something, I'll say, "Okay, let's devote a little bit more time to that." So this is a completely different product to those B2B scans that are popping up everywhere. This is radiologists run. We only do this in small numbers. It's boutique, and I'm involved in every step of it. So it's a very.
I wouldn't have wanted you to be like to do the shorter version. Like I was like, I am in here. Like you just keep going until you're done.
Absolutely.
You want that peace of mind.
That's like anybody can do a shittier job.
Yes.
I don't know if you might have to edit that out. But it's hard to do a better job.
Yeah.
Doing a better job takes more time, more money. It's harder to do a better job.
And I think just what you said then around you're actually there, standing there going, okay, we've seen this, let's actually dive in closer over here. Because I think traditionally if you go for a scan, you scanned, you move on, you get your test results later or what have you. There was no live moment of let's go further right now.
Yeah, I mean, the other places that even right, there's not even a doctor on site.
No.
Yeah.
They're literally going down, they're literally going I think of it as a chefless restaurant, which basically means fast food, right? Yeah. You are literally going down a script of just do these, very mechanical, no ability to change anything. Whereas this is very much, we can change anything on the fly. I see something that I don't like there. I get a phone call from one of the techs saying, "Hey, Zane, you need to get eyes on this." We'll go there. So I'll say, "Okay, can that? Let's spend a bit more time here," and so on. So it's very much subject to you as a person.
What do you think if this tech was taken up, because you're the only clinic in Australia, is that correct? That's doing it to this level?
Oh, to this level, yeah. To this level, absolutely, yeah.
So if this was taken up and more people were doing this, what impact would this have on the healthcare system?
So the cheapest way to deal with disease is at its earliest. Once we get into chronic disease, you are throwing bazillions of dollars on it.
Yeah.
If we can stop a patient getting from like a small rumble to that chronic phase where you are on lifelong medications, your quality of life has gone out the door. If we can stop that, there's actually a massive saving to be had. Look, it will take some real deep thinking and new ideas and so on. But I mean, if you look at any of those sci-fi things like Star Trek, etc., they're depicting medical nirvana. It's basically you get a wand that flies over you and tells you all the issues, and you just go, that's basically where we're headed. Yeah. But this is the first step maybe into that. Yeah. Even like, how did this scan come about? So we have been doing cancer scans on MRI for ages. Like it's not a new thing. So something happened in the last 5-10 years where we've been able to say, okay, well, we've got good confidence that this is a cancer detecting monster, and now all we've done is changed who we're scanning. The scan is actually a cancer scan. The difference is one thing. We've got two ways to look for cancer. We've got the contrast, where we give IV intravenous contrast and we see the lesion. If it's metabolically active, it'll actually pick it up, and then it goes bright on the scan. And there's another thing called diffusion. So diffusion is a measure of hypercellularity. That means really dense. It's the loss of random water motion, and it's a measure of hypercellularity. So as we got better with diffusion, and we showed that it was giving us the same results as the contrast, so now we've got diffusion and contrast are two ways to look. and we would still do both on somebody who has known cancer. We would really try and get a good look, and we'd throw all the tools at it, so the diffusion and the contrast. But in somebody like yourselves who are healthy and no known cancer, I can't risk giving you the dye in case you have an allergic reaction or some other side effect from the dye. But we've got good confidence now in the diffusion to pick up cancer. So now we've got this way to actually scan you, now using diffusion, without actually having to give you any IV nasty chemicals, with nearly the same results as if we actually had given you the contrast.
Do you hope for the future? We talked before about the barrier being time and money. So I think when you go and get scans now, you can choose quite often to go publicly or privately. I guess, do you see a future where more and more people will be taking a proactive approach?
It's inevitable.
And realising the cost is okay?
Correct.
And we were talking earlier about our children and what the future is for them, that, you know, if you can get mammograms and everything else is being subsidised, is there a time, do you think, that there will be a subsidised version of this for the mass?
Oh, so Medicare already has a whole body code. Like that, there's already an MBS item code. It's for a TP53 gene mutation. You have to get signed off by, I think, a clinical geneticist, a specialist physician. I'm not sure if there's another doctor, but there's a few hoops you have to run by, but you have to have that TP53 gene mutation, and Medicare will fund it. So, they collaborated with, I think, 7 of the colleges in Australia, and they said this was a useful tool for that. So we already, I mean, this thing is scientifically based. This isn't a pop-up store.
Yeah.
This is scientifically based and here for the long term. It's getting faster and more accurate year by year.
And I guess if we talk about cost, do we just roughly talk about what we're talking about as well? Because it sounds like we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars per scan or something, and I know that it's not. Because then if you think about what you're paying in often reactive medicine, how much you pay in the private system or whatever it might be, it really would equate to an annual.
I mean, this starts at 2.5.
$2,500.
I mean, how much do you, like, if
you think about a coffee a day, I think I went down, I was like, a coffee's like $5, well, a little bit more if you get one of those nice little icy things.
I need surgery, you're paying at least a gap of $1,500.
How much is it to get a mastectomy, and if you get an infection, it's like, there's no $2,500, it's $25,000. It's, in fact, a breast scan on its own is about $1,000. I mean, the cost of treating like disease in its advanced stage, it's hundreds of thousands. I mean, we see it every day. We've all got friends who've cashed out their super and are flying to Mexico and Germany. The cost of treating entrenched disease is through the roof. That's the whole thing. We're trying to stop you getting to that entrenched disease.
And it's a priority, right? You go, like, when you look at that, you can either spend it this way or you can prioritise your health.
Yeah.
I do agree. Like, the longevity piece that's attached to it as well.
Yep.
Are you, like, to get this out and to have more uptake, is there more studies that are being done, or is it storytelling? Like, what needs to happen?
Look, it's going to be cost. In Australia, we're very cost sensitive, right? And like, as good as Medicare is a reactive, it's a basic service. It was never, I mean, if think of Medicare, and I don't want to disparage Medicare, but it is a public service, just like food. Well, I don't think we have food stamps here, but food subsidies or public housing. Medicare is not going to, like public housing, they're not going to give you a beach house, or food assistance. They're not going to give you lobster and caviar.
And they also find things, we've talked about this on previous episodes, of diagnosing within the codes of things. Correct. Versus the why of why.
Correct. Medicine is highly complex and inconvenient, and it strikes you the worst possible times for your busy life. Yeah. But so Medicare is a basic service. I mean, I think it'll be decades before, not even decades, it'll be years before there's such a swell of data from the journals that have shown that it actually is decreasing this. I mean, we already know early disease detection saves lives. That's why we have, 3 or 4. We've got the pap smear test, and we've got the kit that you get, looking for blood in your stool. After the age of 50, we've got the lung cancer. We've got lots of screening, and for that same reason, early detection saves lives. So we know early detection saves lives. But to get in those screening tools, it's got to pass the criteria for population-based screening. Like I said earlier, this will never ever, well, never say never, but in the foreseeable 10 years, I cannot see this being part of the public purse, because it's just too expensive. Now, the cost of the scan is a measure of time, and it's a measure of complexity. And the complexity that means you need more software and it takes longer to read and all that. But as that gets faster and faster, the cost of this will go down. Yeah. I just hope that it doesn't become a race to the bottom where somebody's saying we can do it in 15 minutes for $50.
Yeah.
Then the problem with that is this: you are going to have a test, and as a punter, you may not know its deficiencies and it may not have been explained to you. Then you get it and you've got all this false confidence, and then you get a horrible, ominous symptom, right? A month later, you ignore it because you've got a test that told you, hey, you're all good. And again, you wear the consequence of that abbreviated scan or that cheap scan or that kind of, headline grabbing scan, and you go and do it. But you wear the consequence of its lack of robustness.
So what does a consumer look for? Because there are a lot of companies doing full body scan. How do they know?
Yeah.
Because they probably do think that they're getting the role.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely. We are right now, like crypto. We're in the wild west.
It's about nutrition. It's like, what do we do?
I know. We're in the wild west of it.
Yeah.
I would say anybody going, ask them, your radiologist, how many has reported, right? We've roughly got, I'll have to check the numbers, but we're just under 1,000, I think, at the moment. That's probably more than anyone in the country because we've been doing it for the longest. You've got to make sure it's on a 3T because you get better signal to noise. The next thing is, and this is probably the most important, back to that diffusion, the two sequences to look for cancer, because the other ones are the shape of things, and the other one is a measure of hypercellularity, which is what cancers are. They're very dense structures. So that diffusion at 3T has to be, so we've done diffusion for years in the brain. We do it all the time. Everyone does it. The reason we do it in the brain, and we haven't been able to get it outside the brain, is because the skull keeps the brain, which is a big water sponge, in a relatively stable shape. It's not moving with respiration, etc. The second we are outside that, diffusion is so susceptible to any movement, breathing, coughing, clearing of the throat, etc., that as we deploy it for the rest of the body, especially around where the pancreas is, that little white spot that I look on diffusion could be centimeters away from the organ. And I don't know which, it's telling me there's a bright spot there. I can't tie it to an organ. So it has to be geometrically corrected. So your diffusion has to be geometrically corrected. And that's the absolute key. And that sequence is 80% of all the scanning time. So anyone who's doing it in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, even an hour, they're skimping on that sequence. So like I said, anybody can do a faster scan. You just scan less. And there are some 3T providers in the States who omit the diffusion completely. So now it's just an anatomy. Now what's what I call it, just a body scan. It's not even a cancer hunter. It is a body survey.
Is this happening around the world? This is one here in Australia. Is it quite common abroad?
It is, yeah. The problem is it's been hijacked by, I don't know, tech bros who just want to scale it and have it in every corner. And the problem with that is as you scale, the quality goes down and the profits go up. So the only way to do this well is to do it small and slow. Good medicine in general is small and slow. The death of good medicine is fast and big.
Yes.
And we're very much boutique orientated from that point of view.
If we look back, you get to 90, because you're going to live that longevity is there for you. You'll be 90.
I don't know.
Strolling on the beach out there with a whole bunch of grandkids around you. Looking back on your legacy that you've left with MBR Health, what do you hope to have achieved for this?
The return of small, slow medicine. I mean, just everyone I speak to and all my doctor colleagues, there's so much misery in medicine. And it's because of the hijacking of medicine by hedge funds, by big business. The quality is gone. Like that day, like a country of practice, where you kind of knew it, that's gone. That is completely gone. And it's such a shame and that ties back into that whole societal engagement. That's completely gone. I mean, we're almost like a gym downstairs in the sense that we know so many of our patients, they just keep coming back and we know them by first name. Or they're texting me all the time. But so I would love the return of small, slow medicine because that is better medicine. You're getting better results. You're getting earlier, better diagnoses. And I was saying to my team the other day, I said, I long for the day of a kidney stone or a gallstone. Now it's like there's a small, tiny little tumor blocking the appendix and causing appendicitis, not just a regular appendicitis, or it's layered complexity now. And we know that medicine is getting more and more complex because there's more stuff. It's all around us. We're completely immersed in toxins and pollution and so on. Yeah. So
is it possible to get back to small slow medicine then?
Look, I think it is. I think it, and certainly in America, who are their phase shifted 10, 20 years ahead of us. Yeah. They've gone through that corporate, and now it's kind of coming back small again. But it has to come in the legal framework. So just like back in the early days, only a pharmacist could own a pharmacy, and that's obviously been hijacked now. But I think we're probably 10 years away, maybe 20 years away from it coming, more legislation coming saying, no, only small operators, only small doctors can own a practice and so on. I mean, it's not great for retiring because you want to sell your practice, but then I'll only be able to sell the practice, hopefully, and I don't care. I'm happy to sell my practice for peanuts to the next generation of radiologists. Yeah. I don't need to sell it for big bucks to a big corporate. And if that's a sacrifice I have to make, so be it. Yeah. At least we're having fun on the way.
Absolutely. So with every episode of It Takes Heart, CMR make a small donation to a charity of every guest's choice. Is there a charity today that we can talk about?
Absolutely, Médecins Sans Frontières. Yes.
Gosh, say that again. You said that so beautifully.
Why say it differently?
Well, MSF. MSF. But, MSF. So I love MSF. And I mean, look, if we went in this big rat race, I'd love to be working for free at a refugee camp. So they're doing the work I just can't do. Yeah. And honestly, they are the bravest people in hotspots around the world who are just I mean, their life is worth as much as my life. They've spent as much on their life in medical school and so on, and their parents, and they're taking huge risks that I think most doctors just couldn't take. I'm one of them. I just can't take that risk. But they're willing to park it and just go into these war zones and offer hope and care where they can. So certainly MSF. Would be the biggest charity, and certainly the one I give to the most.
Thank you, Zane. Thank you so much for your time today. Honestly, I've been saying it all the time, but I'm like, there's so much you could just have kept talking. Lucky though, I'll be back here in a year. Good. And now that I know everyone's texting you, I'll get that number as well.
Absolutely.
But no, there's just, it's been an absolute pleasure as well just to go through the experience, and you're doing some incredible work. And I really hope from this episode that just more people are aware about this great technology, this great team that you've got down here at MBR Health.
Appreciate it. It was a pleasure having you both.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land of which we meet, who for centuries have shared ancient methods of healing and cared for their communities. We pay our respects to elders past and present.